It's Kris Fernandez here from Weatherall TV, and I'm here with Dungeon Family's own Backbone.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here in New York City.
Here's what we're going to talk about today. We want to just get a little bit of information on Backbone, his career, his affiliations, and what future projects he has in the works for you guys out there. So give everybody who may or may not be a little bit familiar with you a summary of your artist persona.
Yes, will do. I am Backbone of the renowned Dungeon Family, which includes Outkast, Goody Mob, Cool Breeze, Witch Doctor, Sleepy Brown, Big Rube, Organized Noise, and myself. You know, they pretty much familiar with what Outkast and Goody Mob and the Dungeon Family has done musically over the past 2 decades. So, you know, all they have to do is hit a Google button and they'll get familiar.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right, so tell everybody a little bit about growing up in Atlanta. What led you down the path of music?
Well, basically, growing up, I was influenced heavily by my father, Felix Clark Williams. He played in the stage band with Paul McCartney, Michael Jackson, Johnny Taylor, Joe Tex. You know, he was into music. So musically, I was already, you know, mature in the game, you know what I mean? Because I saw music early. So, you know, therefore, I couldn't do nothing but fall from the tree and pick up a branch and keep moving, you know what I mean? So, music was right there always in my bloodline, so, you know what I mean? But growing up, I listened to a lot of Earth, Wind, and Fire. And we all know that they're very musically inclined. And a lot of Parliament, and that gave me that big group essence. So it was only right that I grew up and collected, you know, the type of value with Outkast and Goody Mob. So
during that, you know, time growing up, did you ever feel, you know, otherwise influenced to get into some of these other things that you could get into in a city like Atlanta, or were you pretty much focused on that musical path from a young age?
I mean, just growing up in Atlanta, I did a lot of things I shouldn't have been doing. I ran the streets a while, you know what I mean? And then I went away to school. I went to Alabama A&M University. And that kind of gave me a feel of other cultures, people from other cities. So I was always around people from different places. But growing up in Atlanta, I did the basic things that we do in Atlanta. Ran the streets, went to Jelly Bean Skating Rink and Greenbrier Mall, West End Mall. So, you know, it was a lot of things I could have been doing, but, you know, I kind of leaned towards the right way. But I'm on the right path now, though, you know?
Yeah, definitely, man. So growing up with, you know, the whole music thing coming up, what led to the beginning of the infamous Dungeon Family?
I mean, I met CeeLo Green in Greenbrier Mall. We were very young, and what attracted us to each other was our flavor in clothing, like our styles of dress. We were heavily influenced by New York MCs, and every time I saw CeeLo, he had on the freshest gear, and when he saw me, I had on the freshest gear. And that kind of connected us. We had no idea we would grow up and become members of such a powerful group.
Yeah.
But that was a higher power putting the chemistry together then. So that's how that got started. And then later in high school, Cujo dated a young lady that went to high school with me. And we were mutual friends in high school. And, you know, the rest is history. I met Organized Noise the summer that I graduated from high school. And we built the empire from there.
When you began with the Dungeon Family out of Rico Wade's basement, known as the original Dungeon, what was the atmosphere like in there with so many creative minds under one roof at such a young age? What was that atmosphere like every day?
I mean, it was an outlet. None of our parents had an idea that this would do as well as it did, so they were like, man, get out of here. And shout out Rico Wade's mother for allowing us to come to her house and create. She believed in her son, and he believed in us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we would skip school and hang out there, and it wasn't a microphone. So all they did was produce, and we rhymed all day. That's all we did. And then we would go to the studio and lay tracks. But the Dungeon was like a family thing. Like, you know, you can go to creativeloafing.com and it's an article about the original dungeon. That's a local publication, I think, in Atlanta. But they got a website that you can check out and get bits and pieces of the history of the dungeon from that, you know.
Take me back to the time when you were working on your debut album, Concrete Law.
Mm-hmm.
I see, you know, you have so many features on that album of, you know, everyone from the Young Bloods to C-Bone to Sleepy Brown, everybody. And what was that process like, you know, from the beginning to the completion of an album like that?
Well, when I wrote Concrete Law, it was basically an illustration of what I had seen. I remember the Source magazine said that how could I be a part of the Dungeon family with the story that I was telling? Because, you know, Goody Mob had a message, Outkast had a certain message. But what's so unique about the Dungeon family is that we all had individual stories to tell. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I was just basically telling my story. I was a street poet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I preach street corner blues. That's what I always said. And Concrete Law was the first trap rap album out of Atlanta. Yes. Quote me on that.
You pretty much started a movement there, you know?
Definitely. The label I was signed to didn't understand it. That's why they didn't manipulate it the way that it's being manipulated now. Because I was breaking down a door then.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's always tough being the first pioneer of your kind, you know?
Always. But I'm recognized as. So, know about it.
Yeah. So out of all those songs you created, whether it was on that album or, you know, on other works, what would you say is your personal favorite song that you've either created yourself or been a part of? What's your favorite?
Well, I have 3 babies. Obviously, my first child is Get Rich to This, that I did with Goody Mob. That was like something that allowed me to see the world. Traveling with Goody Mob, you know, did plenty tours with them. When I wrote that verse and hook, it really changed my life. Shortly after that, they were shooting the Black Ice video. And Big Boy handed me a cassette tape and said, we'd like to have you on the next album. That album was Aquemini. And my offering to Aquemini, which was a 5-mic album, classic, was Slump. I did the first verse and hook on Slump. Mm-hmm. That's my second baby. And obviously 5 Deuce 4 Trey, my lead single from my first album. It's always going to be my grandbaby, you know?
Yeah, of course, man. So now, with all of you members of the Dungeon family, Even in Darkness came out.
Right.
Now, with so many people on one album, did you find it that it was a lot of creative differences, or was it just meshed together beautifully just based on the fact that you guys pretty much have worked together for a long time to begin with? So did it come out, was the process smooth, or was it a lot of bumps in the road?
See, all of the albums that we created under the Dungeon family umbrella was exactly like Even in Darkness. They just had different titles and was specifically for a specific group. All of the albums were collective efforts. You know what I mean? So it was no different. We just went in and gave our offering, and it came out great. So, you know, be looking for a new one real soon, though, but you didn't hear it from me.
When you're coming up with the song, take me through that creative process from writing the song to its completion and release.
Word. Well, when I'm writing, I usually absorb energy from a more natural source. I may be out somewhere and I see something, and I kind of put myself in that person's shoes and try to illustrate it in a way as if they were saying it, the person that I witnessed saying it. So if they ever heard it again, they'll be like, that sounds like something I say. In actuality, you said it. You know what I mean? I'm not taking the idea from you, but I'm just speaking for you in a sense. You know what I mean? So that's basically how it is. I take real life situations and create. I try not to over exaggerate or over reiterate any type of thing or manipulate a certain subject, but I just speak reality. Like I said, it's street corner blues, and you know what I mean? Whether it's trap or informative, spiritual or soulful, it's an essence. Music is an essence and an art, so you have to put that aspect into it when you're presenting your, music, your songs.
So once all that behind the scenes work is done with writing and completing the song and the album, then you have to go on tours. You tour different cities. You're performing at all kinds of live venues. What are a couple of interesting, funny, maybe crazy stories you can share with us from all of those experiences touring?
I remember we were in Chicago once. I think we were on the Stankonia tour. We were in Chicago, and I came out in a big mink coat and doing my thing. I got a little dance I do when Get Rich comes on. And I came out and hit a wet spot. Oh my God, that was so embarrassing. I hit a wet spot, landed flat on my back, and I did my entire performance laying on my back.
I need to find that YouTube video somewhere.
Yeah, man. It's vintage. It's vintage. I think Big Boy has it on one of his unreleased tapes. You'll get to see it here soon. But yeah, that was one of my most interesting performances. But my favorite, I think, was when we did the birthday bash in Atlanta with Outkast when they headlined. And the city really let me know that I had a hit on my hands when I performed that night. So that really touched me that night. So from then on to that point, I really been, sparked and amped to do this. So.
What has your relationship been like with a lot of the fans you have out there?
Let's see. Before social media, I met a young man in a wheelchair. I did a song with Goody Mob called I Refuse Limitations, which was on the Still Standing album. This guy was in a wheelchair, and he had that tattooed on his arms. I Refuse Limitations. And that let me know that the people were really into our message, and they could personify with us. So that was, pretty unique. And then, since social media is out, I speak to the people every day, and it fascinates me as well because their response is like, wow, he's talking, but I'm like, I'm human. I can type. About 60 words a minute. Right. It's not much, but I can type.
It's good.
I'm going to talk to you. You know what I'm saying?
Wow. So, that may have answered my next question, but would you say there was one specific fan encounter that you maybe cherish more than others? Is there another one maybe that comes to mind?
That's definitely it. That's definitely it, because that guy really resonated with that moment. Like, he really let me know that something I wrote, stood out like that. But recently, though, in the movie Neighbors, they quoted bits of my lyrics from the song Slump I did with Outkast. And that was really unique, knowing that something I sat on my grandmother's porch and wrote is being quoted in a Hollywood feature. So,
yeah. No, it's pretty crazy, man.
Right. They didn't play the song.
Yeah.
They actually said the lyrics.
How tight-knit today are all the members of the Dungeon family with one another?
It's an alliance. We speak just like any other family. We grow up and grow apart and establish other entities. You know what I mean? But we are still a core essence, and we still speak, occasionally. You know what I mean? So there's no beef in the Dungeon family. You can kill all of those rumors. It's just that each king is out establishing his own kingdom. We grew up in a certain city, and we all went off to college. That's how it is now. You know what I mean? We're establishing other situations. Like, I've given birth to a situation, Plateau Entertainment, and I'm working with artists on that platform now. So,
are there any artists under you right now that you'd like to tell the world about that are coming up and you think, can show the world a new style?
Well, specifically, you can Google Dungeon Family Generation X. There's an independent album I released. It's more of a compilation. And you can Google that information, Dungeon Family Generation X. The album is entitled Global Warning. It's a rare artifact. You have to dig deep to find it. So, Generation X is a gem. And I'm going to establish that entity in different chapters. So the faces will always evolve. It's not a set group of members. So the Dungeon family will be infinite.
we're in 2014 and Outkast has got back together after many years apart.
Right.
You've worked with Outkast on many occasions. How does it feel to know that Outkast is coming together once again for the world?
Well, they recently just played Counterpoint in Georgia, and I was standing like in the pit right in front of the stage. Like I've always been a fan first. Run DMC, Outkast, A Tribe Called Quest, Earth, Wind and Fire. It's my favorite groups of all time. Like I stood there and watched the chemistry between Dre and Big. Like I watched them grow up from young teens to grown men in the industry to be one of the most powerful groups in hip hop. So I'm always a fan. So I'm excited for them. So, you know, I'm just fortunate enough to be born in Atlanta and be a part of such a powerful movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, are you and Outkast working on any future projects together at the moment?
Now that may be top secret. It might be some top secret information. Just stay tuned. Anytime you see Backbone, just know it's Dungeon Family affiliated.
Great. And now, for Backbone, what future projects, what can we expect in the near future from Backbone?
Well, like I said, I just released Dungeon Family Generation X Global Warning. That's out there independently. I just dropped an EP, Beats and Rhymes, the Homage EP, which is exclusively on djbooth.net. Shout out DJ Z. So you can find those. But I'll be working on a few more things, producing, writing, whatever. And my next solo effort will be entitled Eternal. It's going to be a tryout album, 3-part album. The first installment will be entitled The Flesh. The second installment will be called The Immaculate Reconception. And the third and final installment will be called The Transfiguration. Eternal 777. So hashtag that, hashtag Eternal 777. And be looking for that new Backbone album. Yeah, that's where I am. But I will be putting out a few more writers and producers and a lot more, you know, artists. Not rap, though. Because I'm the best and only rapper on my label. Trust and believe that. But yeah, I'll be working with a few jazz artists, a lot of instrumentation, a lot of things like that. So, you know, yeah, definitely.
Great. Well, you know, thanks again, Backbone. We really appreciate you coming through. I'm sure everybody out there watching is going to be very interested to hear all of these interesting stories and some crazy stories.
Right.
So we really appreciate your time. It's Kris Fernandez, Weatherall TV, signing out with Backbone.